Well guys, welcome to video number 7, I can't do a 7, in the Skymaster F14 normal size aircraft series. Last video we finished up with bolting the nose on the aircraft. We got tons of organizing to do, so no lollygaggling, let's dive back in and try and wrap this thing up in this video. All right, so what's the plan here? So I'm thinking the first plan is to pull all this stuff out, kind of get it out of the way the best that we can. And I think the first thing to do is going to be run all of our servo leads to the central box here. That will at least get everything tucked down, kind of out of the way, get rid of the wire mess. While we're there, we can also plug in all of our lighting stuff into the controller. That's going to be a bit of a pain because it's all the way in the back, so that's a chore for sure. So once we get the lighting stuff run to here, the servo stuff run to the central box, then we're a lot more clear and open. We'll be able to deal with our airlines and stuff. So I'm going to work on that first. Really nothing stupendous to report with that. It's just a matter of running them to the correct side and plugging them in to the central box. All right, so a little update on organizing. We've got all of our wires run first. Actually, the first thing I did was all the lights in the back. So we've got all those leads run and plugged in to the lighting controller, and then ran all of our servo leads coming to the central box. So this right now would be pretty much all of our surface leads, and those of course go to the left and the right side of the fuselage. And then in the center part here, I zip tied those together, and the reason for the zip ties is to keep them away from our platforms here where the tray sits down on. So we don't want to obviously pinch anything on those guys. We'll do a very similar thing to the airlines once we get those organized. So the airlines are kind of the focus that we're moving to next. So we took our tray here and we got everything laid out for our supply. So this is all joined together, and essentially we've got this lead right here which goes to the front, which is going to be our canopy lock. So that airline is going to feed the cylinder at the front, or the solenoid at the front. And this is our main supply right here. Our main supply comes up, and the shortest lead is going to our gear. So the gear gets the most uninterrupted supply. As the air moves through all these different items, it slows down a little bit generally. So that's why we have the line coming up, teeing off, going right to the gear, and that's how we've got it organized. So moving on to the other airline stuff, we've got this little section that's made up here, and this is going to have air tank. Compressor input is right here, so this comes off to the nylon line and goes to our compressor fittings, which is these guys right there. We'll talk more about that. And this is our fill valve, so this is the gray line coming from the back, which is the BVM fill valve. Plugs in right there. So that is the air system and all the organizing bits. So when we come off of this Festo T, we're going to use Festo line, not the standard airlines. We're using Festo line. And the reason for that is it plugs in and seals to the fittings perfectly. So that's going to have a 3mm line going from here to here. This is a 3 to 4mm reducer. So the 4mm line comes off, goes to our one-way valve right there, and then our Teflon line plugs into the compressor. The air coming off the compressor is very hot, so that first little bit of line needs to be a Teflon line, otherwise your regular Festo line will just melt. So in a nutshell, that's the air system. So we're getting back to the fuselage here. So there's a couple things we need to tee up and organize. So the gear lines, which is our red and blue lines, front to back, those need to be teed up. Our front doors, so these doors and then the front doors in the back, those need to be teed up. The rear doors are going to be their own thing. So those right here, so this is the rear mains. So this is just going to come through the tray and get plugged into the solenoid valve. The air brake is just going to come through the tray and get plugged into the solenoid valve as well. So some of those things are pretty basic. And that's the layout. I forgot that we've got 3 black lines as well. One of those lines is for the wheel brake, so we need to figure that one out too. So the air cylinder lines, when you blow into them, they'll actually accept pressure. So that's an air cylinder line. That's wheel brakes. And this will be air cylinder line as well. So it accepts pressure and then blows it back at you. So those are our cylinders. That's wheel brakes. So we'll tuck the wheel brake up there so you don't get it confused and put the wrong thing in the air system. So trying to be as organized as possible, we'll get back to dealing with our air leads. But before we do that, you'll notice that we're using Festo tees here. The Festo tees are pretty much the norm now. All I use is those Festo tees. The Skymaster kit does come with a set of plastic tees. I don't use them anymore. They're an absolute nightmare to get the airline on, whether it's the Skymaster airline or other airline. And the Festo tees they obviously cost more, but they are so much easier to work with. The airline goes over, they've got a nice barb on them, so they hold really well. They end up being, I think, about $4 each or something like that, but yeah, they do hold really well, and they're just so much easier to deal with, especially in these situations when you've got really tight areas. Before we get the tray installed, so we've got our mains teed off to the left-hand side underneath the compressor there. All those lines are coming up through the board. We've got our leads here, our extension leads. Those are for the air valves that are on top of the board that don't plug into the gear controller. These leads up here for the airlines. So we've got air brake, and then we've got rear doors and wheel brakes. I'm going to run those on top of the board because I think if we go underneath the board and then try and come up to our locations, we're going to be very tight, especially on the air brake one. So I just want to make sure. So those will come down on the top of the board and plug into their respective locations. That's just saving us a little bit of room there, but we've got everything fastened, everything's out of the way, so it's not going to interfere with any of the mounting points. So that is good. So we're going to slip that board in there and get it fastened. I think the last thing we'll do before we do that is get our vent fitting installed. Maybe we'll do that afterwards, but there's a line or the vent fitting right down there. We can just slip our line over top maybe afterwards. Now I think we'll leave the UATs off just to make running all this stuff easy and doing the screws up and stuff. I think that's going to be easier if we just put the UATs in there afterwards and then put the zip ties on. You know, Nez, sometimes I can't help but wonder what the heck you're doing 15 feet up. All right, so things are powered up for the first time. Now the reason for that is with our Chikoi sequencer plugged in, which we haven't plugged in yet because we need to plug that in. But with our Chikoi sequencer plugged in, what's going to happen is we can blow air through the filler and the air will come out the appropriate locations on the valves. So right now our gear is in the up position. So if we blow air through here on the doors, the gear, that will blow air through the doors closed and the gear up circuit, which helps us to get our lines installed on the correct side of the valve. All right, so gear is channel 15, which is fine. So we can take this and plug it into port number 15. And once we do that, the Chikoi sequencer failsafe turns on, which is good. And then now, if we put air into the valve, we can see what happens. So we've got our main compressor air chuck here in the shop with the line installed. So we'll just chop off the end of the line because it's a little bit big right now. And then now we'll put air in there and see what happens. Now, of course, nothing's going to respond to the gear because no lines are hooked up right now. And we need to clamp this side off, which is feeding the front valve. Okay, and then one of the things with these Chikoi valves is they usually default to not being active all the time. So what we'll do is we will do the gear up procedure, or gear down. So now those valves are active. Now, if the valves turn off after 15 seconds, all you have to do is take something and push the little button, and that changes it to always on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to power everything down And we'll turn this plane back on with the gear in the down position and just check and see if those valves do their thing. Okay, so those valves have turned off, which is not what we want. We want them to be always on, so we'll push the button on all of them. Okay, so now the valves are on. Now we'll power it down and make sure that they turn on right away. Perfect, so now they've all turned on, which is good. Confirm that wheel brake works, which it does. So there we go. So now what we can do is we'll go gear up. I'm only doing gear up because the gear is in the up position. So if we start putting air into this, I want the gear to stay in the up position. So now if we take the air chuck, add air to it on the gear side, I can feel that gear up is this output valve right there. So all I need to do now is hook my appropriate gear up line to that output valve. So gear up is red, so all of our single red line here is going to go to that valve. So we're going to go through and do that for all of the air valves. All right, so we've got all of our initial leads hooked up here. I've got the system clamped off to the other valves because the canopy valve is wide open, and I've got it clamped off and filled up with pressure right now, and the gear's in the up position, all of our doors are closed and everything, and we're sitting here at 81, 82 PSI, so it's holding rock solid, which is very nice. So that is a great thing, and we've got everything hooked up the correct direction on our air brake. Doesn't matter because we could reverse the valve if we wanted to. Brake is working, we're on off, and the only other one would be the canopy one, but again, we can reverse that. So what really matters is the actual sequence of the doors themselves and everything, which now it's all controlled by the Cheekoi sequencer. So that, guys, is a great first step with the air pressure here and the air system. So just showing you again, we're just cycling between 82, 81 PSI, which is wonderful. So while we're here and things are on and running, it's a great time to check some things like surface travels. So elevators moving the correct direction. So up elevator, down elevator. Perfect. We've got right aileron, left aileron, right rudder, left rudder. That's good. Swing wing. So I think so our gear is in the up position and our flaps are in the off position. Now if we go flaps full, there's no wings. What happens is the mix turns off on the flaps. The flaps would actually come up, but you can see there the swing wing is doing its thing. Now the mix is set up right now for the lights to come on when the swing wing is working, which is cool. So that is kind of a first shot at the lights here. So we got our shoulder lights, belly beacon, landing lights aren't on because the gear is up. These shoulder lights aren't working. Rear flasher is doing its thing, so need to check a few of these things and see what's going on. All right, so dealing with gremlins time. This is always the fun time in a project like this. So you'll recognize these lenses as the right shoulder lenses and these lights right there. So let's talk about why these are out of the plane. So I don't believe I checked these ones. I know I checked the right-hand ones or the red ones, but I can't remember if I checked these ones or not. So when I fired up the lighting system, these guys weren't working. Everything else is working. These ones weren't. So we'll just plug this into a battery and you can see there, nothing is working. So no lights coming out of those guys. Fortunately, I've got some replacements from my stock, which I just happen to have, which is great. And if we plug these guys in, you will see that it's not the battery or anything like that. It is just simply the light itself. So there is the light. And yeah, so anyways, these ones that were with the kit that were supplied burnt out, so we've got to replace them. Not a huge big deal. The only downside is getting these lenses out was a real pain. So we do have to do a little bit of repair on the fuselage, but we'll get these guys sanded back out and get these two guys wired back up and installed back in the plane. So unfortunately, I find this time of the projects, builds, whatever you want to call them, assemblies, that's when the gremlins pop up. You start turning things on, seeing how things work out, and there's always some gremlins that pop up. So on the F14, that's why we did that tray install for the air system, turned everything on. I wanted to make sure. So I fortunately didn't need to pull the tray out to get to the wiring, but if we have to do anything beyond that, then we would have to pull that tray out. But we wouldn't want to have the cockpits in and canopies all done when we finally figure this out. So that's why we're taking little baby steps. All right, and a few hours later, actually 4 hours later now, lights have been changed, glued back in place, all that stuff's done. We do have to clean up around the lights as well, but our fill-in pieces that we've done here, that needs to cure first. But we want to check our lights. There we go. So lights are all working now. Woo! Oh yeah, because we changed the sequence a little bit. So we've got our chin pod there working. Our landing light is working. Oh my gosh, is that ever bright. Wow, and our shoulder lights there are working too, which is cool. That is wonderful. So I just put that on a plus minus switch. So if we look at the actual menu here for that, so we've got, this is our master override switch is what it is. So we can play with the mix and stuff on these guys to make them work differently, but ultimately what we want, if you look at the airplane, so right now the lights are off, we want to be able to turn the lights on and off. So lights would be on, and then when we put the gear down, we want the chin pod and the landing light to turn on. And now they're off, on, off. So that's the goal with that stuff. So anyways, happy the lights are working. That is wonderful. All right, so getting those lights fixed was a huge step in allowing us to move forward. So now I feel like we can actually keep progressing. So essentially all of our air system is done except our canopy here. I did sort of try and run the gear. I didn't show it on camera, but basically the gear was able to come down and go down as far as the table, and it did go back up. So didn't do a full cycle with it obviously because it can't go down all the way, but the sequence seems to work fine. So that part is good to go. We may have to slow the doors down a little bit. Probably on the front doors, which is these guys here. So I'll likely put a restrictor in the front doors as a first step. But now we can start moving into getting our other stuff done. So what does that look like? Well, it means that we need to install our UATs here and get those installed. Those are going to be a bit of a pain as well. Get all the plumbing stuff dealt with. Once the plumbing stuff's dealt with, then we can start installing our turbine equipment, which is our GSU. They're just going to get mounted to the sides here, so they're nice and convenient. And our fuel pumps are going to get mounted in this area. At least that's my thinking behind all that stuff. So kind of the next steps to get those pieces installed. All right, one of the nice things about this setup is we can pretty much pre-do most of the UAT lines and not have to do them while they're buried in the fuselage. So the yellow Tygon line that I'm installing here, Tygon line, is going to be the fill lines for the fuel system. So basically these are going to tee together and they are going to go back to the Jersey filler, which is installed at the engine hatch. So these guys will basically sit in the plane like this. These tee together, and that tee goes to the back to the filler. So when you're filling, you're using the one fill port. It goes to these UATs. They're going to be at an angle. So all the air is going to come out of the UATs, goes into the first fuel tank, which is the front tank. So there's no reason to have two separate fill lines in this situation because these UATs are pulling from that front tank. So that's how we're filling this guy up. This, of course, is the pull line for the fuel pumps, and those fuel pumps will be sitting right about here. So these will be super short. So these are the excess amount that we cut off from the lines coming from the main tank to the UATs, which will hook up right here. So we're getting these stuff safety wired, and then we'll get those guys installed. All right, so we got all of our plumbing done, except the lines going to the fuel pumps, lines going to turbines. Vent line, that's going to, we're going to put our hose on the vent. going to come up, and then those will go to their respective locations on the vent. So, but all the plumbing for the UATs are done. Everything's routed nicely. And we got our mounts done up for our turbine fuel pump. So this is a 3mm blind nut with a 3mm screw. Those are Loctited right now. So these will get aero epoxied to the side of the fuselage. You want to make sure you put a little drop of oil on there so you don't get aero epoxy holding the screw in place. And they're going to go right like that. So as you can see, it'll be a nice short run from the UAT to the fuel pumps. We'll have one on the same side. And then with our data terminal or hub for the turbines mounted right in this area, everything's going to be nice and short. These are our GSU plugs that run to the back. So yeah, things are moving nicely. Happy with this so far. Happy, happy, happy. All right, again, it's the next day. We've got our fuel pumps. They got glued in last night, and those are nice and solid. So we used high sol to glue those in place, a little bit of C8 to tack them in place, and that's all good. So I think what we'll do in this case is we're gonna finish the plumbing to the fuel pumps just to get that done and get it out of the way. And then we will probably install our data hubs, our ECUs if you wanna call them that, on the sides here, get all that stuff run. Then we'll probably install our air cylinder, get that run, and yeah, slowly moving forward here. This is feels good. Feels like we're accomplishing some stuff. So additionally, I haven't painted our nose cone yet. So I'm going to paint our nose cone gray. Again, just like we did the back tray. So we'll get that painted just so it can cure before we get to this section a little bit later on. All right, so as we work our way through adding our different devices to the aircraft, I'll give you a bit of an explanation on how we plan things out. So coming to the front of the aircraft here, we're starting to gather up our bundle of extension wires, we'll call them. And those extension wires right now run from the Chicoy controller, so we can program that. The R3, which is used for on-off functions. So you can see here, this is the on-off function lead going to the switch lead. And then we've got this lead here, which is our EXT extension. We've got a Cortex lead, which is right there, waiting to be plugged in. And then I'm just working on our primary receiver, or receiver 1 actually, that lead. Now, we need our Sweewind turbines to plug into our primary receiver and secondary receiver. So we're going to use our EXT port here, number 1, to plug our telemetry lead from the left turbine is going into primary 1. But we also need an EXT extension to bind this to the owner's receiver or radio. So that's where these guys come in. So I've measured out the EXT lead going to the front of the plane, which is the orange lead here. So that currently has R1 EXT written on it. And then we've got another lead here. This is measured out to go to the telemetry port on the turbine control box. And this end here, where they're both pigtailed together or wired together, this goes in the EXT port of the primary receiver. So during normal operation, this lead is sending the turbine telemetry data to the EXT port. And when the owner gets this plane and he wants to bind his radio to the aircraft, he's going to do that through the EXT plug, which is this one sitting at the front of the aircraft. Now, I've explained this already, but why is this important? Well, when this aircraft goes to the owner, the canopy is going to be closed, the cockpit's going to be in, all that stuff's going to be hidden in the aircraft. So we don't want him to have to take all that stuff out in order to get access to all those EXT plugs, and that's where those extension leads come into play. He just plugs a Y cable into that extension lead. I'll grab that and show you. So I keep one of these in my radio boxes because they always come in handy. So this is our extension lead right here. We've got a bunch of other cables to make life easier. But this here plugs into our lead at the front of the aircraft. So let's say we want to bind the primary receiver. We plug this into the lead. We've got 2 female ports on this side. So what we're going to do is we have the bind plug installed on one side. We've got our power, which is just a spare battery, That goes to the other side like that. And now that receiver, when this is plugged in here to the EXT port, now that receiver is in bind mode. We bind the receiver, we pull out the bind plug, it's all good, we disconnect power, and we move on to the next device, which would be the second receiver, then the R3 on-off switch, then the 900 receiver. So all that stuff is accessible through those ports at the front of the aircraft. All right, so more steps accomplished. All of the wiring is now complete into the central box. That feels really good. We've got our second receiver installed. Also our 900 is installed. We didn't have one planned for this aircraft, so we've installed it and it's in there now. So that's done. So wiring wise, everything is essentially completed and run to the nose section. So now in the nose section here, we've got turbine and central box. We've got turbine and compressor and central box. So those will be run right in this area there. We've got all of our extension leads here for the different devices. We'll cut all these off to like a distance like this, and then they'll get tucked inside there so they're out of the way. So that part is done as well. And yeah, inside wise, we have some antennas to mount and stuff. And the last thing we have to do is to hook up our air cylinder for the canopy to open and close. Now we can't really do that until we've got the canopy kind of close to going on, so we can get this stuck in the right spot. So left to right, up and down, that kind of stuff. Still lots to do, but I feel like the end is near. As far as running things goes here, you can see we've installed our clips. So we're nice and clean down the side there. This other side here, we're nice and clean down the side. So we've separated our power wires from our other wires. Now those wires don't really matter because they're all going to the EXT port extensions, but that's all separated. We've got our M-Speed installed. Everything's nice and secured down and clean and neat. This is our R3 on-off switch. So yeah, lots of clean installation at this point. Everything's looking good. So yeah, so just the air valve for our canopy open close, and our vent line needs to go in there as well too. So that's awesome. All right guys, well there's still a ton to do on this aircraft. So with the gremlins we had in this video to deal with and just the details and stuff that we shared, we're gonna move on to another video to wrap this aircraft up. So that's the end of video number 7 in the assembly series. And we are going to be wrapping this aircraft up in the next one. So that's gonna be 100% for sure. So we've got cockpit still to do, all the detail work still to do, so still lots to do, but that'll get wrapped up in the next video. We'll do our test runs and everything as well too. And I'm very happy that we're coming to the end of this project. It has been a lot of time. It's surprising how long these F14s take. I didn't look back at our records from the first one we did, but I think I put in like 140 hours or more on that first one, and we're at that already on this one as well too. So it's a ton of work, and I'm going to be very happy, maybe even a hoorah when it's done. So anyways, that's it guys for this video. Thanks for watching. Channel members, thank you for supporting the channel. If you're watching this and you're wondering what the heck channel membership is, it's a paid thing. Channel members, they pay a monthly subscription, but they get access to our videos early. So we often have 1 to 2 weeks of videos uploaded to YouTube. Channel members get to see those as soon as they're uploaded to YouTube, and that's usually 2 weeks before they're live to everybody else. So that's the perk of channel membership right now. We're working on some cool additional things, but just doing some brainstorming with that. So thank you channel members so much for that. Thanks guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.